Hey guys, welcome back to Don't Limit God. I am Joseph, your host, and today I am honored to be with author Donna Wayles. Her book is I'll Pray for You, a Christian woman's guide to surviving domestic violence. How are you today, Donna?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. And so, could you briefly go over what your book is about?
So, my book is about the my experience in after years of abuse by my Christian husband, how I escaped and found that God gives happier ever afters, and I'm just here to just share the hope of escape from domestic abuse, just like God saved me from it.
So, and we've talked about this prior, but I'll pray for you. And then I told you it brought me back to the verse that we use a lot loosely, I think. Faith without works is dead. Uh, so why did you name it I'll pray for you?
So I called my book "I'll Pray for You" because Um, I was living in hiding. I was staying with another church member, and my ex husband was stalking me, harassing me. The military detectives had said that when they arrested him for the assault, that he told them that if he found me, he would finish the job, and they believed him when he said that, and they were treating this as if he were going to kill me. He was stalking me. And so I was staying in hiding, but I couldn't stay where I was because they were afraid that he would find me, so I needed to move. And so I went to the head elder of my church. We called them the head deacon. And they had helped me before, hosted my baby shower and taken us shopping and all the fun things before the baby is born. But this time there was something different, and he stood there with his arm across the door of the back door of his house, and I didn't understand. And I said, I need help. And he said, we can't help anymore. He's dangerous, meaning my ex-husband was dangerous.
Right.
And I said, yes, I have bruises. And I pointed to my bruises. And he said, well, but, we can't help you, but I'll pray for you. And that thoughts and prayers. And he dismissed me. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. And I just kind of hung my head and walked back to my car and drove back to where I was staying. I just couldn't believe that they weren't going to help anymore.
So, what was the journey from that very moment to where you are now, or at least to where you began to write your story in the book?
So it gets farther down, actually, and I think that God has a way of making us question, or allowing us to question all the things. I love that. I love that God doesn't punish us for asking questions, because there was another person who allowed my daughter, who was about 18 months old at that point, and I to stay with her. And it was beginning to be summer, so we were sitting outside. She was not quite two, and just playing around outside in the yard. And I got a call from the pastor of the church where my now ex-husband and I had been attending. And what he told me was that if I didn't take my abuser back, that they were going to discipline me out of the church. And I was just taken aback, and I started to cry. Like, I had spent most of my life, like from about sixth grade on, doing what I thought God wanted me to do. I was teaching Sunday school and children's church, and I became a teacher in a Christian school, and I had taught on, well, what we would call the mission field, but I went to Hawaii as a Christian school teacher, and I had spent, like I said, most of my life doing what I thought God wanted me to do, but yet here was this minister telling me that he was going to discipline me out of the church just because I was not willing to take back someone who said they were going to kill me. That didn't seem right, and I was so upset. And I ended the conversation with, I guess you'll have to discipline me out of the church. I can't take him back. The detectives are saying that he tried to kill me and that he will kill me if he finds me. And I think that's when my faith hit the lowest point ever. You know, how can you follow a person who's willing to excommunicate me or throw me out of their church just because of domestic abuse, because I'm not going to take this man back. And so going through the court hearings and all that kind of stuff, the lady that I was staying with was an older lady, and in the book I call her Alice, but I was reading one afternoon, and she brought me a cup of tea because I don't drink coffee, and she knew that. And she said to me, do you mind sharing a little bit of your story so that I can pray with you? And I was so emotionally numb that as I shared my story, she actually started crying for me and all the things that I had been through. And I couldn't believe that someone was actually showing that kind of emotion and kindness. And she helped me consider that, maybe God is not happy with the actions of some of his followers. Maybe all of those legalistic things that I used to believe, maybe those aren't important. How long your skirt is or shorts or whatever you're wearing, and what kind of earrings you wear, or the hair, or all the stuff. And I got to the point where what I told my mom when she said, I don't know you anymore, was, Mom, the day my face hit the glass of our storm door, with my ex-husband's help, of course, was the day that all of those things became less important. The fact that some people have a drink of wine or alcohol with dinner is not going to affect where they go for their eternal destiny. And all those things that I thought were so important were very much less important when I was living out of a suitcase and living in hiding. And so I learned, and I'm still learning, that God doesn't focus on how I look on the outside and all the things that I do. He wants my heart, and he wants me to love him and believe in him on the inside, not just all of the things that I thought were so important on the outside. So that's kind of the journey that I have been on, from that very low point of, they probably disciplined me out of the church, to now I'm so happy that God has given me a second chance and these opportunities to speak and just share the hope that God really rescued me from that abusive relationship, and he can help other people too.
Absolutely. Well, so how did your search for safety, how did that affect everything else in your life? So your work and things like that.
So it was really, I was in a very conservative fundamental Baptist church, And so those churches would not, they would not hire me back again because of the divorce.
Hmm.
So I lost my job. I lost my house because the Navy, everything was in my ex-husband's name, and so I couldn't stay where I was, and I lost the church friends that I thought were so important to me. These people that I had known for several years, and that I had taught their children in Sunday school and all these things, and all of a sudden I was just not involved and not invited, and it wasn't even safe for me to attend the church because my ex-husband was there, and I didn't want to risk the confrontation. And so I really felt like I lost everything at that point and just had to completely start over. And it was really tough trying to figure out. I remember, in fact, a day, my parents had a little trailer in South Carolina in Charleston. And that's where my daughter and I moved finally when the judge let us go from Washington State. And I remember standing there in the kitchen going, what do I want for dinner? And my daughter was easy. She wanted chicken, the little chicken nuggets and rice and green beans. That was her favorite meal. And so as long as I made those, that was good for her. But, an adult can only eat that so often. And so I stood there thinking, what do I want to eat? Hey, I could make squash. I could make squash casserole. I could cook with garlic and onions and all these things that my ex-husband just didn't like, so he didn't want them to be he didn't think that he didn't like those, so I wasn't allowed to cook with any garlic or onions or spices and stuff. And so I was like, hey, no one's here to tell me that I can't do this. I can make all sorts of things now. And my mind just started racing with, well, if I can do that, I can pick a new favorite color, and I can pick a new hairstyle or a new style of clothing, or and just this whole world kind of opened up at that point, just standing in the kitchen thinking about what I was going to have for dinner. Was just this whole almost a revelation of, look, I'm giving you a new chance to be who I want you to be, instead of being this limited person by the box that other people have put you in. And so it was and that was just an amazing experience.
So was that the first time that you really felt free? So was that the beginning of essentially a new you?
Absolutely, that was the beginning of a new me. That, and a lot of just reading and praying, and there's the verse, and I don't remember. It was I think it was the disciples, but I forget which one. But Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. Lord, I want to believe you, but all these things are, this is really hard, and this is really, all the things that I thought were important are not there anymore. And so that was the beginning of feeling free, and then meeting my husband now, and then just the idea that God's grace and the good relationship that we have now is just so amazing to me. There are still some emotional scars, but God has been so good, and I feel like everything that was lost, God has given back so much more.
And that's great. That is amazing. So, if you're willing, for those that have experienced domestic violence and they don't necessarily know how to get back into a relationship with someone, um, how is it for you? And can you give some advice on that?
Sure. So, um, my husband now, we've been married for 10 years, but we dated or we hung out because dating is, we just didn't really date. We kind of hung out for about 3.5 years before we got married. So it was a really slow process. Um, it was learning to communicate safely and to trust the other person was really a big step. Um, and then so that communication and that being able to share a little bit of where I came from, and not all of it, because he said I don't want to know you in that light as a victim. I want to know you as the strong person that you are today. And I appreciate that, but there's still some times where he will step on a nerve, not purposefully, but just,
Right.
in conversation, something will come up, and I'll get quiet and he'll say, "Ooh, did I do something?" But that communication of being able to say, "I just need a minute to kind of compose myself. I didn't know that that was going to be an issue, but it is." So, communication is key. Patience with the other person, and just being able to um, be gentle and kind, and just caring. In fact, I was at the doctor last week, and my ex-husband would say, "Oh, you look so sexy sitting there." And I was able to joke with my husband now. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm looking so sexy with the oxygen mask on my face
Mhm.
because I'm having an asthma attack." And he laughed and he's like, "No, you look kind of pale and pasty." And so just kind of making light of what could have been an emotional trigger, but being willing to kind of work through some of those things. Those are so important. The communication, and the kindness, and just the understanding of, we all have baggage. It's a matter of what it is, and which triggers that you're willing to kind of help the other person out with. I think those are the most important.
So, with your book, I'll Pray for You, a Christian woman's guide to surviving domestic violence, available on Amazon and your website, arthurdwales.org, correct?
Yes.
Uh, what message or what reason, what's the purpose for your book, and what message do you want to share?
So there are two reasons for my book. One is that I didn't realize how abusive my relationship was. I just thought that, my marriage had problems, but I didn't think it was that bad. Um, but I was, I was, I hate to say brainwashed, but I was really brought up to believe that the man was supposed to be able to do whatever he wanted in the marriage. And that's not what God wants for his children. He doesn't want his children to be hurt or miserable. And so I figured that if that happened to me, that there might be other people who might believe similarly and might be in that situation. And so that's the first reason. And then the second reason is that there were some people who I reached out to, and they could have helped, but they didn't. They made things worse. And in the one case, I had more bruises after reaching out to my pastor, and that should never happen. So my book is a challenge to people who could have helped and didn't. And the message is just that there was a couple that came to visit my ex-husband and I then. It was like a visitation kind of thing. They came to see us and check on us and the new baby and that kind of thing. And I mentioned to her that I wasn't allowed to answer the door or answer the phone or, go to the store without my husband's permission. And she said, it's probably better that way. The world is a very scary place. And I thought, I'm not getting any help from you. And so I think the deeper message of I'll pray for you is the idea that we can make a difference where we are just by listening and paying attention to the people around us, being kind and being, if somebody needs something, be there for them. They may not be able to ask, but listening and just making people feel heard and seen, like they feel like they exist. And if we can be that kind, then I think that we can change the world where we live, and then help, and then, by helping one person, that person can help other people.
Absolutely. Well, so a hindsight question with all the people that you reached out to that chose not to help you, do you think that if they would have, you may not be who you are today? So essentially, them not helping you really allowed you to become a new person.
Absolutely. And that's a conversation that my husband and I have now, because part of the healing process is going through that grief and that loss of who I was and all the things. And so, absolutely, I wouldn't be the person that I am today, and my faith wouldn't be the same if those people had, sorry, my cat is coming into the picture, but I would not be the same person if those experiences hadn't challenged my faith and made me think differently.
And so, going through your journey for that, was there a point where there was a separation for you between what we consider religion and the way that you grew up in things in that setting, and just God in existence by itself?
Oh, absolutely. There was a point for several years that I just didn't, I had a hard time attending church because I felt like the people there were judging me, like the Scarlet Letter. My name and my daughter's name were not the same, and I had a really difficult time with that organized religion piece. I can tell you that I love God and that I believe that He saved me literally, and I believe that He saved me to take me to heaven when I die. But I also believe that when my ex-husband tried to throw me down the stairs, that God's angels carried me down those stairs, because I remember touching the door frame, the door stop, and I remember touching the bottom step of our second floor apartment, but I didn't touch any of the steps in between. And I remember getting to the bottom of those stairs and praying, "Thank you, God, for your angels carrying me down the stairs," because I didn't touch any of those stairs. And it wasn't anything that I did. So I believe that God saved me and has given me this second chance, or given grace, so that I can share. And but that doesn't mean that it's not difficult to attend church sometimes.
Right. So has anyone, male and female, come up to you and told you how your book and just the message of your book has inspired them and helped them along their journey?
Interestingly, I had a phone call yesterday from someone who said, "I read your book and I was in an abusive relationship 40 years ago, and your book has really inspired me to tell my story and to get back into church and to remember that God loves me and that I'm so much better now than I was back then." And so that has just been, it has been so amazing to hear the stories and to allow God to use my pain to help other people. Not that I would wish that on anyone.
Right.
Do you understand?
No, for sure. Yeah, that is great. Thank you for your time, sharing your story. I'm hoping that it will empower and inspire others, not only that are in domestic violence relationships, but those that are not and see it and are aware of it, that we may step in, and aid as the best we can.
Well, one of the things that people ask me is, if I don't want to be involved because it's dangerous, what can I do? And honestly, I would have loved a package of diapers, or, just a gift card to Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, whatever. Anything like that, just to show that someone is thinking about you.
Mm-hmm.
Watch my baby while I have to go to the courthouse, or, if you don't want to be involved, there are so many things just to show kindness. A gas card, a supermarket gift card, all of those things, because I didn't have a place to live, I didn't have money, I didn't have clothes, so just little things that people don't think about. Diapers and, even a new rattle or toy for the baby would have been amazing. And so thinking about getting involved and being kind and that faith without works, kind of bringing it back around,
Yeah.
just little things to show that you care, and that there are people who are good people who want to help.
So guys, I really hope that you heard and that you take, that is good insight, good information. Again, thank you for your time. Her book, I'll Pray for You, A Christian Woman's Guide to Surviving Domestic Violence. Guys, please go get it. There will be a link in the description of the video and the podcast to get her book. I highly, highly encourage it, not only for you, but even just for someone you love, right? It's not necessarily always that we learn things from our own experiences. It's also great to learn things from someone else's. that may aid us in avoiding. So,
Absolutely. Thanks so much for the opportunity to be on with you. This is great. God is so good.
oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right, guys.